Selected by an independent jury and is now the basis of the vision for what we're implementing on Queen's Quay.
The scheme existed of 3 layers. The first layer actually is the one who's related towards the water. It's the water edge promenade with the wooden boardwalks. And some parts of that design are already implemented. Just think about the water edge promenade in Bayside, but also here in front of the Queen's Quay terminal, you've got the wooden boardwalk and the promenades. The second layer is the relationship with the water itself, and that's like the finger piers, but also the wave decks. And the wave decks, we've got 3 of them at this moment. In the future we will have perhaps even more. You know, Spadina, Reese and Simcoe wave deck. And then the third layer of that design is Queen's Quay, which needs to be a green vein. If as designers you look at the relationship between water and landscape, there's always a tree there. The group of the 7 has, if you just look at Thompson as an artist, he paints beautiful paintings with then rock schemes and jack pines on the front. So we took that as a reference, and then Queen's Quay should be that reference to that image, which means that it needs to be a green promenade with a lot of trees, and it needs to be a pedestrian zone. The north side sidewalk, it's not a very pleasant space to walk. We want it to be more friendly than what it is today, and that includes beautiful paving, beautiful granite unit pavers. Although the size will more or less be the same, we're changing the pavement itself, so the granite paving will be very smooth to walk on by just paving the whole sidewalk in from the roadway all the way to the building facade. Suddenly it's not private anymore, it all feels public.
The north side is really where all the retail storefronts are, and those have had mixed success in the past, partly again because the physical condition of the sidewalk is not ideal. So we are trying to not only beautify that north side, but putting in more public garbage cans, better lighting, bike racks, and all of those things that'll make the north side a better place to walk and stroll and shop.
And then we've got the road. The road today we've got 2 lanes in each direction, and that will change into a road which has 1 lane in each direction, but with dedicated right-hand turns. That's the biggest difference with what it is there today.
Despite taking 2 lanes of cars away, we're going to have a better functioning road. The problem isn't that there's only 2 lanes or 4 lanes. The problem is one guy's trying to make a right turn and everyone else has to wait for him to make that turn before they can go. So we are going to be solving that congestion problem largely, and I think we're going to have a street, from a car point of view, is actually better.
The traffic will flow in a very gentle and easy way, and that's a big improvement for Queen's Quay itself. South of the road, everything is elevated. That means that everything is about 15 centimeters higher. In that way, we're creating a pedestrian-friendly zone.
Transit obviously is a key piece of bringing people to the waterfront, and we very much want to improve the public transit system to the degree that we can. The streetcar tracks here now are at the end of their useful life and needed to be replaced, so the timing is great. We're going to rebuild the street and all of the beautiful streetscape elements and upgrade the TTC itself. It right now has substandard width platforms that are not wheelchair accessible and really don't leave nearly enough space for the volumes of people who use this streetcar. So we'll be widening those to full standard width. We'll be putting in modern shelters so people can wait. It gets cold and windy down here in the winter. You want to be able to wait in a shelter.
They will feel very welcome at the waterfront because they have a wider platform to step in and out of the streetcar, including the street furniture that is on the platform makes it a good place to arrive at the waterfront.
We're also creating a true pedestrian esplanade on the street by taking away 2 lanes of traffic that are on the south side of the TTC right-of-way that you see behind me and converting them into a granite mosaic sidewalk.
Promenade is about 13.5 meters wide, and that's really where the pedestrian will feel welcome, and it will be the zone where people will walk and hang out and talk with each other, but also walk from east to the west side of the waterfront. The zone will be paved in with beautiful granite paving, which is like 10 by 10 centimeters, dark red, but there will also be a motif in it. We call it a mosaic. And the mosaics exist of the maple leaf, but then the outlines of the leaf itself, and that will be in a white stone.
One of the main components is to create finally a dedicated cycling trail through here to serve the very growing numbers of cyclists that ride not only in Toronto, but especially want to come down to the waterfront.
We're making a connection in the Martin Goodman Trail, and that means that we're connecting the existing trail in the east and the west together through Central Waterfront. The vision that we gave for the waterfront in 2006 promised a double row of trees south of the TTC right away, so on the promenade. What you're seeing in typical street trees here in Toronto is that they're only surviving for 7 to 10 years, and that has to do with the compacted soil beneath paving. So what we're doing is we're investing a lot of energy and a lot of money below grade just to make sure that those trees will survive and will have a lifespan of 25 to 50 years old. So at that moment you have a tree that is at 12 to 15 meters high.
And we're planting trees that have that kind of a lifespan, so they will get to be big and robust and create a kind of civic scale that's really lacking on the street now.
If you just walk today the stretch of Queen's-Quay and you walk along the street, then you have almost no place to hide during the summer because the sun is shining very hard on the street. Well, in the future, if you have a double row of trees on the south side, but also the trees on the north side, you're at least possible to walk in the shade of the trees. And then the trees are very typical for this climate. It has a big leaf but light, so it's always very light and beautiful to walk underneath it. It has a very strong character also in the winter. Reducing the space for cars, giving more space to the pedestrian, adding trees will also during winter season make it a more comfortable zone to walk in. The design is looking at the different aspects of seasonality in the street, and I think if you walk along the stretch you will also see that in just how the tree is blossoming, changing colors in the leaves, but also how flowers will pop up and give color to the street. So
we only have about 27, 28 meters to work with, and everybody wants a piece of it. I think we now have a plan that has very, very broad public support.
If you look at the street today, I've got two sidewalks, one on the north side and one on the south side, and they have an average dimension of about 2.5 meters wide. It's not a very generous space to walk as a pedestrian. So one of the huge things that we're promising with the vision is that on the south side we give you about 13 meters of pedestrian-friendly zone. I think we will have a street which will be very comfortable to walk on, but will also be very pleasant to be there and to take your children and your stroller with you and just walk the whole stretch from Spadina all the way to Parliament. Once you seed something in that neighborhood, and that seed starts to grow, it will blossom. Just as a reference, if Queen's-Quay will be beautiful again, then you will see that neighborhoods around the street will also start to blossom. Stores will reopen along Queen's-Quay, so the frontage and the life at Queen's-Quay will blossom again.
Once all the infrastructure is moved, then we will start the rebuild of the surface works, starting with the rebuild of the road on the north side. Along with the TTC, those two things will be done in parallel, so we'll have transit and cars back up and running. And then we'll be free on the south side to build the pedestrian promenade and the Martin Goodman recreational cycling trail and the double alley of trees and the granite mosaic, all in time for the 2015 Pan Am Games. And that will cover about 1.5 kilometers from approximately Spadina to Bay Street.
It was seen as one of the worst, ugliest streets in the world by a New York spacing blog a couple of years ago, and we're going to turn it into one of the most beautiful streets in the world. When people come to Toronto, they will want to walk Queen's-Quay. You go to Paris, you walk the Champs-Élysées, you go to Barcelona, you walk the Ramblas. When you come to Toronto in 5 years' time, you'll have to walk Queen's-Quay Boulevard. It'll be that stunning.
We don't want cookie-cutter building one after the other. We really want each of the buildings to be different.